Hi, welcome to RCAM. I'm your host, Ryan, and thank you for tuning in today. So today we have on our show a guest of mine and a friend of mine, actually. His name is Aaron. Aaron, how are you doing today?
Oh, just hanging in there, bud. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Definitely enjoying a change of scenery. So I'm no longer in New York, which is relieving, and I'm enjoying the beautiful South. It's been quite an adventure for me, so I'm enjoying it out here.
Is it like a culture shock at all, or?
Not for me. I spent a couple years out in Oklahoma, so I really enjoyed it's a little bit different than the Midwest, but I think like that Southern hospitality is alive and well here, and I really enjoy that. My neighbors are friendly; they're not scowling at me, so I like that.
People in the South are generally much friendlier.
Yeah, they are.
I've spent some time in Oklahoma. My mom lives in Oklahoma. And honestly, you know what the best thing to do in Oklahoma is?
What's that?
Just pack up and leave.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I remember you telling me a little bit. I loved Oklahoma, though. I was in Tulsa, though. So Tulsa was a nice little city, and I really enjoyed it. So tell my audience a little bit about who you are.
Well, my name is Aaron Levine. I'm a stand-up comedian in New York. I'm somewhat of a local business person. I've been working with my father full-time, first time actually full-time, but for about 2 years now. I've worked on and off with him all my life. He has a auto dismantler yard, a salvage yard, aka a junkyard, and it's honestly a pretty essential business. You know, people always need to get on the go. They need to be on wheels and rolling. Other than that, I am a purveyor of cheeses. I like a nice cold beverage every so often, and I've been hit by a car twice.
Twice? Wow. That's a one too many times.
Yeah.
Huh. So you do comedy, man, and that is awesome. I actually have not had the chance to come out and see you. I've always wanted to, and I just never got the opportunity to. But tell me a little bit about that world. How did you get into it?
I got into it like almost 3 years now, actually. The last year was like there was no comedy going on. You know, if you wanted to do an open mic, you had to travel out to like New Jersey. You know, honestly, it's like the world kind of stopped during COVID, the beginning of COVID. Now it's picked up a little bit. I've done 2 shows, and I haven't done any open mics, but it feels good to just go out there and want to say funny, kind of profane things. It's been getting back there, but it's not like it was. Because you used to be able to go and do like 3 or 4 mics a week. And, you know, there's not much comedy in Sullivan County, so I would go to, like, Orange County, Ulster County. You know, I'd go to Kingston, like, once a week. You know, every so often Dutchess County. Go out to Suffern, you know, other spots. Now there's just no open mics. You know, I still keep in contact with a lot of comedians on, like, Instagram and whatnot, because I don't use Facebook. I can't deal with my my aunt's political agenda. Or just anyone's political agenda.
Dude, Facebook is it's hardcore. It's like nonstop being bombarded with different stuff. I'm one of those people though, so I'm always stirring up a little bit of trouble on Facebook. But yeah, I definitely feel you though. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I should just delete this.
How's that going for you, having everybody yell at you about your beliefs?
You know, honestly, I'll be real with you. In the beginning, it definitely bothered me a lot. You know, and not just because, you know, it's one thing if it's like strangers on the internet, like I can deal with that. But it, you know, people you know, and people that really get this one-dimensional view of who you are based off of like a post.
Yeah.
and then not wanting to actually, talk to you in person. And unfortunately, last year, actually, COVID, I lost a ton of friends. So that was pretty rough. But
Yeah, me too, man.
I think I'm pretty okay with it now. I'm at peace with it now because, I'm someone that, firmly believes in, standing for what I believe is true and right. I'm not going to say I always get everything right. I certainly don't, but I at least make a conscious effort. I'm not pretending to be somebody. I mean, this is who I am, and I really want to be somebody that makes a stand for truth and at least ask questions. And even asking questions, though, invites all sorts of criticism and negativity. So that's kind of a downer. But how so I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the comedy world. So obviously we live in a pretty toxic culture at this time. It's not exclusive to to Facebook, but I'm sure this has kind of seeped over into the comedy world. How is cancel culture impacted comedy, or the way that you do comedy, the way that you do stand-up?
It doesn't change the way that I do comedy because I don't allow people to tell me what I can and cannot say. I did the Flashburn Art Festival this past weekend. It was one of the few times I've been able to do comedy, and I got some awesome feedback. This dude who owns a local service shop in Liberty, he comes up to me after my set and he was like, "Dude, great set, really funny, but really horrible material." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine. It's jokes, And I did an interview prior to my set, and the guy was like, "What do you like to joke about?" And I was like, "Anything, really anything." I'm not PC at all, because I think that if we can eat each other's food, we can enjoy each other's cultures, we should be able to laugh at each other. I think when you start to tell people what they can and cannot do, you're hindering progress, which, I've been in this argument with other people before when they tell me not to use the R word. I don't use the R word from a place of hatred. I'll say it, and it's passive. I know many developmentally disabled people, but once somebody tells me what I can and cannot say, I'm like, hey, you know what that means as a verb, right? To R word, you're hindering progress. So it's not that I'm shooting from the hip or I'm trying to upset people. It's just I don't believe I should be allowed to tell people what they can and cannot say. With all due respect, I wouldn't just go out there looking the way that I look with my paint job and say the N-word. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah. I think that cancel culture and the PC culture doesn't really have a place. I think it's only going to draw borders between people, and politically correctness is just wrong.
Yeah, man, it's definitely. I think it has a lot of people, and I'm grateful for people like you that are not willing to kind of kowtow to, I guess, the cancel culture mob, and just kind of, just be that refreshing, comedic, lighthearted person in this world, because we need people like that, honestly. But it's getting crazy, man. I was briefly, before we started recording, I was telling you a little bit about The Office and how an episode, the Diversity Day episode of The Office, got canceled. And I'm like, Jesus, why? That was a really funny episode.
It's so funny that that's the one that got canceled, because that's the most woke one. Michael gets slapped. What, Mindy, right? No, Mindy Kaling, what's her, Amy. She slaps Steve Carell on that episode because he's doing an Indian thing. And it's hey, appropriation. Why would you cancel that episode?
Yeah, and that's the butt of the joke. That's why it's so funny. But that's the episode they decide to pull. That's concerning too, because I'm getting more and more concerned that they're just going to go back and kind of remove any episode that is remotely funny from different genres.
You got to blur out Creed because it's ageist. Every time Oscar makes a comment about being gay, you got to say that that's homophobic. It's just the cancel culture is so detrimental to society. We're never going to go any further, because then you start to see things I think you posted something on your story about just white men need to be stopped. Was that
Dude,
you?
Yeah, that was me, dude. That post was crazy, and you're seeing more and more of that, the demonization of white people. I'm just like this is wild to me. Like I don't even, what is it? The bubble they're in is so isolated because I just don't think they even hear what they're saying. Because you take those exact same words and you put any other race on them, and you're gonna be like, oh wow, that sounds pretty racist. Yeah, but you do it to white people, it's completely okay.
Well, that's something else
that I noticed. Wild.
That's something else that I noticed in comedy is black people love racist jokes. And if you can go out there and say things that don't come from a place of hate, and like you kind of like present yourself as just another member of the community, like you can get away with it. But the moment you say that same joke in front of a very like leftist, liberal white person, like they get super upset, and they're the ones that want to deplatform you and tell you that you can't say something. But really, all that's doing is like that's giving value to racism itself. It goes against what like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. Like judge somebody by their character. Don't judge them by the color of their skin. So like that's like my take, my counter to the PC world and telling people what they can and cannot say, because it's just going to put up more barriers. It's going to divide more people.
Yeah, and I think since we've been seeing kind of this cancel culture become more prominent, we're seeing that division. I mean, we're seeing the separation, and man, like I feel like, I don't know, probably when we were in high school, I felt like things were pretty good. I mean, they weren't perfect, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to pretend that there weren't people that were racist, but we didn't have this I don't know, like cultural tension that we're having right now among the races. We all got along pretty well, and it was nothing like it was today.
In a very diverse place where there were black people calling you the N-word, and it was like a term of endearment. You felt good in those moments.
I've said the exact same thing. I'm like, that's not how we use that word. Growing up, it was not like that at all. It was really like to us like a way we respect it. Yeah, bro, exactly.
Dude,
that's how we use it.
I mean, I to this day have like some of my very best friends are black, and we laugh about it, like, because whenever somebody wants to call me racist, like I'll tell my buddy Shane Jones, and he'll just like, oh, that N-word's crazy. It's just like he knows my family, like my black cousins and whatnot, like they know that I'm not racist, so why allow somebody to tell you that you are, just don't even argue with it. If somebody calls you racist, it's like, yeah, you're right. And so are all my black friends and family, all my Chinese friends, all my Spanish friends. They're all racist.
That's tokenism.
Yeah.
That's what they would say. But, you want to know something? I never got that argument. People be like, if you have having black friends isn't proof that you're not a racist. Actually, I think that's pretty good proof that I don't hate them if I'm willing to be friends with them. I think that's pretty compelling.
If they're coming over my house and we're eating and we're having beers and whatnot, and we've been trading video games since we were kids or something, like, okay, yeah, no, you're right. You're right with your accusation. But the thing is that there's good racism. Believe it or not, there's good racism. It sounds so funny to say that. But then there's what really hurts people. Like there's good stereotypes. Like, oh, Jews. If you have a doctor, you want to have a Jewish doctor or an Asian doctor. If you have a lawyer, you might want to have a Jewish lawyer or something like that. And it's like, man, black people are great athletes, and Mexicans, they make the best pizza. They're the hardest workers. Like, there's nothing wrong with noticing somebody's culture and the things that they give to society.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you went into, okay, so let's say you go to a basketball game, and you see, like, a white dude on the court. You're like, you always question how good he is.
Yeah. No, that's true.
He might not have it, but people are so afraid of that. They're afraid to, like, accept people, to enjoy each other for what they really are, where they come from, and I don't know, man. Like, I could tell you right now that I don't have like a hateful bone in my body like that. But like, I love my friend's Spanish mom. She's short and she cooks a lot, and she doesn't let me leave unless I clean a plate or something. It's just, you know.
Yeah, man. And I had those types of relationships too. One of my good friends, his mother, she's Filipino. I loved her food, and I was not appropriating it when I ate it. I was just really enjoying it because it was delicious.
Yeah.
But we live in crazy times right now. Especially there in New York. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about New York. So obviously I'm no longer there, and
Congratulations.
I have no desire to be there. And I'm probably going to do a whole episode on why I actually left New York, because there's a lot to unpack there. But I think one thing that's got a lot of people spooked is some of the vaccine mandates that are going on there. Now, I want to make one thing clear for everybody listening. I am not anti-vaccine. That's not the case. I am, though, very much anti-mandated vaccines. I am not with that at all. I think that is just an uncomfortable situation that I think people are being put in. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's very, I've had people tell me that public health and public safety comes before personal freedoms. And I don't necessarily agree with that. But I also know that COVID isn't as serious as it's been presented. I mean, I think if you're a young, healthy person, you can survive COVID. And I think just like the chickenpox, like maybe it's something you should become exposed to, just so you can build up the natural immunities. If if your health is compromised, definitely take the preventative measures. But I think that COVID has been kind of blown out of proportion. And this is coming from someone, like my grandmother died of COVID, but my grandmother was also in her 80s and in a nursing home. And, like, personally murdered by Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah, that was
He did. He
horrible.
walked in there and he put a pillow over her.
He might as well have, man. It's crazy. You know what's crazy about that whole situation is I can't believe that's not what took him out. It wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the fact that he killed thousands of elderly people in nursing homes. It was his inappropriate gestures, which, don't get me wrong, is not okay. But I feel like that should have been secondary to the nursing home thing. That was a scandal there. That was a huge issue.
Yeah, but the neo-feminists nowadays are so powerful. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing right now that's more popular in politics than strong women, and I'm all for it. But I also think that women are strong on their own anyway. You don't need to like push it like it's an agenda. Like all the Marvel movies have like a montage of just female superheroes. When I always thought that female superheroes were cool anyway. It's just the neo-feminist movement. Like, I'm a huge fan of Louis C.K. and he talked about his scandal quite a bit. He was very open about it. He talked about it on stage. But Rosie O'Donnell heard a rumor and she was able to like get some people to talk about it, and they canceled Louis C.K. Like, from what I heard, his daughters, like, they still won't talk to him. Like, he lost movie deals. He lost specials. He was able to come back out with another hour called Sincerely, which was really good, and he talked about it, and it was funny. But, I mean, the guy just had a kink, and he, like I said, he was open about it. Sarah Silverman, who they used to date back in, like, the early 90s, she talked about it. She said it wasn't, like, malicious at all, like, it was consensual. But they got him just because he's a white guy with a weird fetish.
Yeah, they were trying to get Kevin Hart, too. I forgot what they were trying to get him on. I don't think it worked. Huh?
I said, that's heightist.
Yeah, they were trying to get him, though, man. And, it's wild. But I am ultimately glad that Cuomo was finally stepped down and resigned. Although I do wish it happened a lot sooner, and I do wish it was the nursing home thing that took him out. You know,
Sure.
and dude, that's really sad though. Like, because you're somebody that was directly impacted by that decision. I don't think a lot of people realize, like, no, these are real people that really got impacted by it. These are real people that lost their lives because of the decision that he made. And I think he made that decision ultimately because he did not want Trump getting credit for anything. And Trump had those ships there that he could have utilized, and I'm just like, man, like that is beyond prideful, and that cost people their lives.
You know, even before the pandemic, for nothing but 4 years, and I was never originally a Trump supporter. I was pretty anti-Trump in the beginning. But for 4 years, all we saw, the left and the Democrats, you know, liberals, whatever you want to call them, all we saw that side do was try to impeach Trump from day one.
And no, that was their mission, man. Rashida Tlaib, I remember her saying, "We're gonna impeach this mother."
Pelosi, yeah. But you know, like on paper, Trump was pretty much an independent. He was anti-establishment. The same way Bernie was kind of anti-establishment. It's just like nobody from the party really wanted to challenge them. You know, they didn't want to give them a chance at all. It was just they were too radical for the rest of the party. But you know, Trump was so popular. You know, people buy into it, and I like some of Trump's policies. I like the America First policy. You know, I like some of the stuff that he had to say and some of the stuff that he actually got done for our country. However, it challenged the majority in Congress and the Senate, like in politics, and it's kind of sad because honestly, like I said, like I was never really a Trump supporter, but then you see somebody like standing up and like, hey, America's not the best, but we're paying for most of the world's ecological problems when you have countries like China and India that have a huge population that contribute so much to global warming and so much to the climate crisis. And, you know, it was just like
no one really talks about that either. Like I've been to India, bro. And I've seen the way some of them live and the garbage strewn through the streets. Yeah, they definitely do. But the way some people act, it's like America's the outlier. We're definitely not.
Yeah. And I don't have anything bad to say about like the Indian people or the Chinese people. But I will speak against their governments. You know, I don't agree with. I'll speak against my government.
Yeah,
110%. I've got so many negative things to say about my own government right now, but like it's not coming from a place of me being a nationalist or me being a xenophobe. It's hey, this is what's actually going on. You know, like I know a lot of people that have been to like almost every country that you can do business in. You know, like a lot of countries that have had horrible wars. You know, like most of the Afghani war vets, they don't have anything bad to say about the Afghani people, but they've got some things to say about the Taliban. You know.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're not thrilled too about this recent development that happened in Afghanistan.
Many of them are repulsed, and some of them are very liberal. You know, I know some very liberal veterans, and they are absolutely repulsed. You know, and that's one thing to say about Trump is he talked about leaving Afghanistan, but he knew if you did it too soon, it was going to become a power vacuum, and that's exactly what we saw. You know, that was a horrible
2 days. 2 days, and the Taliban took over, man. And not only did they take over, they got our military equipment, and in the process, bombed our. Wait. I thought we left it behind, and then
we forfeited all that equipment.
Yeah.
And one thing to note is that the Taliban never really left. Like, we had been fighting them for a very long time. And the politics behind that, like, I've got some buddies who were over there during the, not the ceasefire, but just the rules of engagement for the American troops was horrible. They were not allowed to shoot back at all. They were basically told, you're going to train the Afghan National Army, who didn't really want to fight, who a lot of them were growing up in a war zone and just their spirits were just gone. And, you know, like, what could I say about it? I don't know the right solution to what happened over there, but I do know that for us to just abruptly leave like that was a horrible plan. And we created a power vacuum, and we allowed the Taliban to just come in, get right back into business, understanding that technology has changed, social media is a thing. They're holding press conferences right now, like, and they know what people want to hear. Is that what's going to happen? Highly doubt it. I do not think that they're going to respect women's rights. I don't think they're going to allow women to vote or drive or any of that. I think a lot of it is just baloney. And I think no matter what anyone has to say, the American troops that were over there protected an actually oppressed people for 20 years.
Yeah.
No matter what the politics were behind it, no matter what imperialist things were happening, what resources were being taken. You look at people that had been actually oppressed, not like oh, I'm being oppressed here because of what I am. Oh, I'm a non-binary, blah blah blah. I'm so, no. Somebody doesn't call me the right pronoun. No, like these are people that are being pointed. Like, they're pointing guns at these people every day, and
yeah, and women and children are being, sold into trafficking and all sorts of horrible stuff happening over there.
Yeah. Yep. And it's really sad, because I know some dudes that went over there that were Christians and were Jews and whatnot, but then after spending time with the Afghan people, were like, yeah, I started studying the Quran a little bit. It's not so bad. Like they respect the people over there. They respect all the different types of, the different tribes, people with different cultures in Afghanistan, because there's quite a few. But, they're, right now, it's back to the way it was. It's back to violence. It's back to actual oppression.
Yeah, and it feels like just a, I don't know, like a waste of 20 years, man. 20 years we invested there.
Please don't say that, because 20 years of protecting like an actual oppressed people, and like I've been reaching out to a lot of my Afghani war vet friends, and it's just, some of them are very upset with the way that it went down, but it's like, hey, that was 20 years that those people weren't like being. That's 20 years that they weren't throwing acid on women, like.
That's a silver lining. It just sucks that it ended that way, It sucks that we left so abruptly, and we didn't even get all of our people out. And
that's something that a lot of them are very upset about, with everything that's been happening in Kabul since we've tried to withdraw, and the people that were left behind. 13 Marines.
The 13 Marines, man, that's tragic.
One person has been fired. I can't recall his name, but he's a colonel who was just asking for accountability, and he was removed from his position. He was fired. I thought that was pretty weak.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not cool.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Biden's reaction to it either. I think I'm getting too political. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, man. Obviously I enjoy talking about this stuff, and it's relevant stuff, man. Everybody's talking about it right now, and there's definitely a lot of perspectives on it. But
yeah.
So one of the things that I did want to talk to you about is we talked a while back, and you mentioned to me that you started to believe in God, which I thought was really, really interesting. You explained that you were an atheist, and I was curious.
Years ago, yeah, we had some great conversations about you being into monotheism and whatnot, and me telling you that I just I was never a militant atheist, but I was I had my own opinion. But,
yeah, I was on the other side of that for a while too. But I'm curious, what changed your mind? What happened?
I had a moment alone one day where it was really, like, I don't know, I wasn't doing my best. I thought I was doing okay. I thought I was, like, striving forward. I thought I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. And then just something spoke to me, myself. I just heard it in my head, and it was like, hey, stop being such an a-hole. I'm trying not to curse. But it was like, I heard this voice. It was like, I had gotten arrested like a few months prior. I was just being careless. I got a DUI, and I was like, oh, I'm doing comedy. I'm doing this. Oh, I just joined the business. I think I'm doing great. But in reality, it was just like I was being so careless and so imprudent that I didn't even notice how it was affecting those around me. And something just spoke to me. I remember it's like I hadn't talked to anyone in like 2 days. and then all I heard in my head was like, stop being an effing a-hole. And, you know, I kind of started to like look at some of the things that were going on around me and realizing that I could do more. And I remember telling you years ago when we worked at the center together, like this Gandhi quote, it's like, oh, I like your Christ, I don't like your Christians. It's like, it's not about that, because I'll never, like, I like to follow the Old Testament just because my family is Jewish, you know, and I do follow some bits of Christianity and some bits of Buddhism, but I had noticed just there is something, and there's a reason to keep going, and there's something that always creates, and then there's the things that always take away, you know, there's always good and there's always evil.
Yeah.
And the good finally talked to me, and I just tried to be more of a human and more of a better person, and try to give up some of the old stuff that I've been doing and some of the ways that I've been thinking, you know, because there's the law of attraction, you know, good attracts good and crap attracts crap, and, you know, I don't know what to call it, you know. For me, it feels like God, you know, for me it feels like a divine power that pushes me in the right direction, reminds me which way to act and how to conduct myself, and then there's the not so good, you know, then there's the hell yeah, I'll do some free cocaine at this sketchy bar that I've never been to, like that. That's gone, you know, I don't feel that anymore. It's just move in the right direction and love and be loved.
That's pretty profound, man. Yeah, I feel like in a little bit of a similar situation, and I heard God speak to me, and you know, let me know some pretty significant things. The first thing I remember hearing is that He loved me, and the second thing was that I was supposed to be a writer, and that really rocked my world. But I didn't believe He was the God of the Bible at all at the time. I didn't believe it. And I actually remember, I remember saying, all right, I believe you're real, but I will never read that disgusting book. that is what I said. And, I was ignorant at the time, man. I had really no idea what I was saying. And, flash forward, and, I have read the Bible, all of it. And, it's really changed my perspective on who God is. I've actually grown a deeper appreciation for the Torah, which I formerly, did not appreciate nearly as much as I do right now. I've really found profound truth in it, and really value it. A favorite book? Ooh, that's a good question. I really like John's Gospel, and I really like Psalms, particularly Psalm 119 right now is one of my favorites.
Which one is that?
It's David. He's talking about God's law, and the way that he talks about it is just really beautiful. He talks about it basically like he's talking about Jesus, and I think one of my biggest mistake was divorcing Jesus from God's law, but the law is the essence of who Jesus or who God is. I mean, it's His character, and reading Psalms 119 made that very clear to me, and started kind of opening up my eyes to kind of the significance of God and His ways and His commandments, and starting to actually practice that. Because a lot of Christians, they believe in God and they believe in Jesus, but they don't care about His law at all. Or they say they do.
He lived.
Yeah, they don't. And they don't honor the Sabbath. They don't care, or they'll keep 9 out of the 10. They won't actively try. And I'm just like, I don't know. I think there's more to the Sabbath thing than we realize. That was actually one of the threads I started to pull was the actual Sabbath day, and seeing kind of the significance of that, and seeing how a lot of what the modern church does is actually it's actually more traditional than it is actually based in Scripture. And we got Christians, a lot of them that will criticize the Pharisees. But I'm like, you're not that much different.
It's
you
a
really
lot more
aren't.
culty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what book that I love? I mean, I've got two books I want to talk about, but the book that I love, just because of this conversation right now, is Matthew. And Matthew definitely talks a lot about, like, following the voice of God and not believing, like, lies. Not just listening to people who have, like, mouths full of venom. Telling you that, like, one day it's all going to be worth it because you actually adhered to God's law. You didn't use God just as, like, an idol worship. You didn't use God just to tell people that they were wrong. You lived the way that God intended. And I love Matthew for that, because, like, Matthew kind of talks quite a bit about just, people convincing you that, they're right and you're wrong. But, just kind of just, in other words, just, like, disregard those people. Like, it's okay. Just live the way that you should live. Follow the voice of God and allow others just to do their own thing.
There's actually a verse in Matthew. It's Matthew 7:21, I think, through 23. It's Jesus is talking to believers, and it says, like, Lord, Lord, we did this, we cast out demons in your name, we healed the sick in your name, we did this in your name. And Jesus says, depart from me, I never knew you, you who practice lawlessness. And that really, for a Christian, you're reading that verse, that really kind of shakes you a little bit, because you're like, whoa, like, these are people that claim to believe in him, and they're doing these miracles, and he says, depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. I never knew you. Like, that is wild.
That's
and that
that's
kind
like
of
the original version of T.I.'s "You Don't Know Me." The rapper T.I.P. Yeah. But you know what book I think spoke to me first, and it's probably the most controversial book, is the Book of Job.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because the Book of Job is it's so easy to misinterpret. When you first learn about that book, however you come across it, whether it's Sunday school or whatever, or you're getting into religion and or you're just curious and you want to read biblical scriptures. The Book of Job is so easy to misinterpret because you think that God is doing something so wrong. But the truth is, it's never our place to question why things are the way that they are. It's like our only job is to keep faith. And even if you don't believe in God, you're an atheist, it's a good it's a good story of morality, because things can be really bad, and that's the truth. But they can get better, and you have to have faith. You have to have confidence. You need to believe that you are competent and that you can get through almost anything. Like I said, even if you don't believe in God, that's an amazing book, because the takeaway is knowing that you need to follow the right path. It's not to get angry when things don't go your way. It's to just, kind of stay the course, remain focused, stay strong, and, even if you don't have faith even if you don't believe in God, have faith in yourself and continue to do what is right. And don't allow the negative, the bad stuff in your life to bring you down. There's always a new day.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the Book of Job too, man. I think one of the cool things about that book too is that everyone's trying to put God in a box, and I think people forget that he's God, and you really can't put him in a box. You can't say he can't do what he wants to do. He's going to accomplish his will one way or the other. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way of looking at it too. And then just seeing that he, above all, is faithful. Like, he knew where Job was going to end up. And I thought that was pretty cool.
What I think is very interesting is people don't really like to talk about the book of Exodus anymore. It's never, the book of Exodus, of course, like, have faith and you will be free. But that's pretty much the motto behind that. With Moses, and the Jews departing from Egypt. And I think the last time, really, that the book of Exodus was, like, really mentioned, like, in American culture was just before the Emancipation Proclamation. Just, that there were a lot of songs, like, just old field songs that were basically, rewritten verses from the book of Exodus. And nowadays, you think of all these people that are claiming to be oppressed, yet they can own land, they can vote, they can own firearms, they have rights, but they're telling you that they're oppressed. Like if that was true, like we wouldn't have so many self-made people in this country. We wouldn't have we wouldn't. I mean, Elon Musk is not a good example, but like there are some very, very, very rich and very, very successful people that live great lives and do great things because they got themselves out of that mental slavery. And that's that's something that I really believe about the Democrats. I think that they try to create victims. They try to make people feel like they're victims. And I know more right-wing people will say things like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and that gets misconveyed a lot in our culture because the polarity, how divided we really are. I think, honestly, that like the Democratic Party has been pandering to different demographics and created a victim mentality that's like, it's like comfort almost to somebody who can't see past that.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that. I think there are a lot of parallels too with stories like Exodus, where you you kind of contrast that with modern culture, and there's just a lot of stuff that's metaphorical. I think being enslaved, by the Egyptians is in a way like how we are enslaved by some of our desires, some of our sinful desires, and being trapped there in that place of bondage. And God's ultimate goal is to kind of bring us out of that. And you can even see some like God sends plagues, and we're seeing plagues right now in the world today, which is pretty interesting. There's actually I'm not trying to think of the verse, but there's a scripture. There's scriptures in Revelation where where the horsemen of the apocalypse, are coming out, and they bring different I guess plagues and war and famine, and all this stuff really starts to affect the world. And I think we're seeing some of that happen right now. With I think like the coronavirus is like one example of that, where it's a pestilence, and that's like signs of the end, which is pretty interesting. I like eschatology. I think that stuff is fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's pretty. I think it's really interesting, and what I think is like, have you ever read Siddhartha?
No, what is it?
About Siddhartha Gautama. So it's basically the story of the original Buddhist, and it's amazing because this guy comes from a royal family. He's a prince. He has everything, but he starts to become conscious of all the suffering around him, and like he feels a sense of guilt, and then he goes and he sits under a tree for 40 years, and he finds peace. It's not he doesn't have to have everything, and he realizes that there will be suffering. And like when I first read Siddhartha, I kind of almost had this feeling of like, well, what if God's just on vacation? Like that was like a funny thought to me, but like, what if the way I'm perceiving the world isn't exactly how it is? I think we're sold a lot in our media nowadays that everything is as bad as it is because the news sells fear. They're not telling you just like great stories, and if they do, it's for 3 minutes at a time. If they want you to be scared, and then they want to play a commercial for antidepressants, or like, some kind of mood stabilizer, SSRI, some big pharma drug. And I almost feel like COVID was kind of like a ploy to sell vaccines, because there are medications out there that do help with COVID, and there's things you can do to build your immune system, but they're not profitable.
Yeah, and they're not talking about those things. Like, we know with COVID that majority of the people that did die from it, they were overweight, and I feel like I don't want to speak negatively about people that are overweight, but like, shouldn't they be placing like an emphasis though on like dieting and maintain? Because that really played a role in it, you know, and that's very tragic. Why not address that, you know? And now, you know, you're seeing a rise of people criticizing ivermectin, but and you know, I'm not going to advocate for anybody to go out and take horse dewormer, but ivermectin is not just horse dewormer. That's how they're selling it. That's how they're pitching it.
Once you said horse dewormer, I was like, you know, it serves other purposes.
Yeah, it does, really, and it's treated lots of people, millions of people in poor areas that they've used as antiviral and antibacterial. And Mexico largely went unscathed because they were using ivermectin.
Dude, just today, like two of my, you know, my best friend's Corey Wakeman, and I'm in a group chat with him and his brothers and a few other people, and one of them shared Joe Rogan's story because he just got COVID when he was on tour, and he talks about taking ivermectin, and there's instantly 10,000 memes about Joe Rogan taking taking this horse dewormer and mentioning that it's a horse dewormer and like pretty much denigrating what this drug can actually do and how it can actually help people. And they get this huge argument, and they start talking about Fauci, and they start talking about COVID in general and every other headline. And one of them is telling the other that they're playing into big pharma, and they're, you know, it's just mainstream media, like you're just being sold an idea. And I had enough of it, and I was just like, birds aren't real. Birds aren't real. Biden stole the election. Like, yours is flat. I can't take it.
Hillary is a lizard person. That might actually be true.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Jeff Bezos is just trying to go home.
Mark Zuckerberg might be a lizard person too.
I don't doubt that. There's so little humanity in his eyes.
You know what's so funny? I enjoy a good conspiracy theory. I really do. Yeah, I don't believe all of them, but I enjoy it. You know, it's entertaining for me to listen to them. Now I can't because YouTube banned all of them. But a lot of the stuff that Alex Jones said, ironically, it has happened. You know, he was talking about a virus being released. He was talking about vaccine mandates, and he was talking about vaccine passports and all that stuff years ago. I'm like, oh wow, that's all happening. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think Alex Jones is an entertainer the same way that like Tommy Lahren is an entertainer, the same way that Stephen A. Smith on ESPN's an entertainer. Like they know how to sell a headline. You know, they know how to talk about stuff. They know how to piss people off. You know, they know how to get people riled up. You know, it's just, that's another thing, though. It's like, I think the media out there, like, you can't expect the truth from the media at all. And that's one thing that I loved about Trump, is that he coined the term fake news. Like, that became popular.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of been turned into misinformation on social media platforms. But these are very big, very powerful corporations that can pretty much govern themselves and tell people what they can and cannot say.
Yeah. And I do not like them labeling stuff misinformation either, because like what was misinformation today, they change tomorrow, and that makes me uncomfortable. Well, you know, they were labeling anybody that was like talking about the coronavirus leaking from the Wuhan lab as misinformation, but we found out, oh wait, no, that was not misinformation. That was true.
Did you see Jon Stewart? You know, the probably the best host of the Daily Show. There was one guy before him, and then Trevor Noah took over after him. But Trevor Noah, I can't stand that dude. Like to be honest, like he is so scripted. He is pushing a certain dialogue. He's actually what Stephen Colbert is, the same way. Stephen Colbert used to be hilarious, used to be great, used to have an amazing satirical voice in the world of politics. And John Smith went on Stephen Colbert, and he mentioned that, and Stephen Colbert tried to like kind of back him down a little bit. And you just look at Jon Stewart, just look into Stephen Colbert's eyes like, Stephen, it's named the Wuhan coronavirus lab.
Yeah.
That's where
Crazy. Yeah, I don't get it. Like, just be honest with us. And I think that's why so many people, they don't trust the media. Like, it's crazy because it's like, at this point, like, even if something's true, like, my knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, I can't believe it because, it's coming from CNN. I don't want to be that way, but I'm just so, with the way the media's been, it's just, I don't know what to believe. I really don't, and I rather listen to, some of someone on YouTube, because at least I feel like I'm not getting sold propaganda.
Yeah, and as a comedian, like, I've always been inspired by their comedians. I used to love Jimmy Kimmel when he was on The Man Show. But when I see Jimmy Kimmel cry crocodile tears and push a certain agenda and, like, have a certain dialogue, I don't laugh at him anymore. I don't laugh at Stephen Colbert anymore. Like, these people aren't funny to me. And, like, the whole woke thing, like, I have a term that I use all the time, and it's WWW, which stands for woke white woman. Because, like, I even like 2 weeks ago, I did a buddy's podcast. It's these three guys, and I'm not gonna name them because I don't know if they're gonna listen to this or not. Like, it's also not necessary to defame anybody. But me and the two hosts were joking around. It was pretty unscripted. They didn't tell me, like, anything that they would or wouldn't allow. But the two other hosts are just like, we're saying the R word, and we're not. Like I said, it's not coming from a place of hate. Like, we're just using it basically like as an adverb like, that is R-worded. And the other guy, who showed up late to his own podcast, didn't seem interested just because I've kind of called him out on some stuff before. And he's telling us the whole time, he's like, yeah, I'm going to cut this. When I edit this, we're going to cut this. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, why am I on your podcast? Like, you're telling me what I can and cannot say. Like, come on, dude. You're being a WWW. And he was like, well, when you use the R word, you're marginalizing people. And I'm like, maybe we're normalizing people. Maybe you shouldn't tell me what I can and cannot say as a comedian because I'm making a joke. A comedian made a joke. You're a comedian. Don't tell me what I can and cannot say. You know what I mean? Like, you and I used to work with the developmentally disabled. And I would never call one of those people that. I would never use that word as a noun directly at somebody unless it was like one of my friends who's being a jerk. But, like, I don't say that to marginalize anybody. I'm saying it because that's R-worded. That's hindering the progress of something.
Yeah, and I mean, this happens with everything too. Everything you say anything and you're marginalizing someone.
You could be normalizing. You could be normalizing it. You could be acknowledging something that's in front of you and accepting it for what it is and loving it entirely. But they don't see that. And the funny thing was, the dude that told me not to use the R word bullied one of my friends who has Asperger's, like a fellow comedian who has Asperger's, who, like, stims every so often. This dude's been through mad therapy, and he's a great dude. He's a little out there. He's a little weird, but that's because he has Asperger's. And then, like, this dude literally bullied him. And this is the guy that's telling me on his podcast what I can and cannot say, but I can't use the R word. Here I am, having worked overnight at an assisted living facility, having had to clean up somebody when they have an accident in the middle of the night and not feel bad about it, and, like, spending time with these people. I'm still maintaining relationships with people with developmental disabilities. And here's some WWW telling me what I can and cannot say.
And there's so many people, man, with that mindset. Whether it's saying that or saying anything, man. There's just so much, man. I don't know if you there's this account on Twitter Twitter and Instagram called Libs of TikTok. Some of the stuff, man, that I see come out of there just blows my mind. There was another account that was like comment something and I'll prove that it's racist. And they were making a joke, and they like someone commented like a picture, like they're like they talked about dogs, and then they produced like an article about how dogs are racist and how everything is racist. I
Some
recently
dogs
saw
are
something
racist.
that
I used to have a racist ass dog. I used to have a dog that didn't like bearded people. Like I've had some dogs that don't trust anybody.
I recently saw an article about how this rock is being removed because it's racist, and I'm just like, man, like everything is racist. I'm thinking of did you ever see Waterboy?
Yeah.
How how his mom says like everything's the devil. That's how I feel about like a lot of these liberals. Like everything is racist. Like just stop. Like not everything is racist.
They never left Bobby Boucher's shack in the swamp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of the big thing that I've noticed with a lot of these, like, because it's all like college kids for the most part, or people in like really metropolitan and like nice places that have been gentrified already. You know, like they're from like the towns, the cities, like that's basically just a mall. Like they have everything. You know, like they have so much opportunity. They could, if they got fired from their accounting job, they could go get a job at like Popeyes in 2 minutes. And I have to go 45 minutes to go get Popeyes. Like they have everything in their towns. You know, they have opportunity. You know, they don't have like like they don't have a socioeconomic issue like I have in Monticello. You know, like a lot of comedians I know are from like pretty nice areas. You know, like I know a lot of comedians in like Hoboken. It's like if you tripped and fell, you're ending up on another business that's hiring right now in Hoboken. Like that's something I had noticed. And like growing up in like a diverse place that's a little what's the word I'm looking for? Not exactly impoverished, but like disenfranchised. You know, there's not those opportunities. You know, like you grow up in like the hood. You know, you got friends that live in the hood. You know, like you don't look at the world the same way. You know, because once you have everything, you start telling people what they can't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like that, man, you know, and I think
that's the WWWs, man.
Yeah. Trying to police everybody, police people's speech, police people's lives, police people's bodies. You know, it's just wild right now. And you know, I think that's why right now, man, I take solace in my faith, bro, because the world is getting crazier and crazier, but I know that as crazy as it gets, God is in control, and He's not surprised by any of this, and He protects His people, and I firmly believe that.
Here's my thing, my personal opinion, my feelings on this is it's good to have faith. It's good to have your own religion, but it's kind of like having like some genitals. You know, like it's good to have them. It's good to be proud of them, but don't shove it in everybody's face. You know, like maybe don't show other people's children. You know, I think it's good to have a personal relationship with God, and maybe that kind of denigrates organized religion, you know, a little bit. But I think everybody should look introspectively, and whether it is or it isn't a monotheistic figure, maybe it's just the code that you follow. You know, it's just like I guess that's basically religion in a nutshell. Just
yeah, I think I would probably push back on you a little bit with that because like at least when it comes to Christianity, like we're mandated, you know, like we're compelled to go preach the gospel, and there's a reason for that. And it's because we really believe, at least I believe in my whole heart that is the truth and that there is life in it. It's not just me preaching a moral way to live, but there's actual life in Jesus, and it's something that radically transforms you. So like the way I see it, I found something very, very valuable, and I want to share it with the world, and I want people to understand the love of God, essentially, and kind of transform their life. And I don't I don't keep my faith to myself. I'm pretty outspoken about it. Now believing it is completely onto the other person. But I feel like there is an obligation for Christians to share the gospel with anybody that's willing to listen, because their faith compels them to. I mean,
that's an important part. Willing to listen. That's a very important part. And I will listen. We might not agree on everything, but do you ever feel compelled to tell people that they are wrong?
Well, I mean, I essentially, because I believe what I believe, I do believe that, the other faiths are wrong. I can't, I wouldn't believe it if I thought it was wrong.
But, I mean, if somebody is coming to your church, because this has happened to me. This happened to me, and I think I was in 11th grade, the Presbyterian Church in White Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to church with the girl that I was dating. And, the dude, I shook the guy's hand. I was like, hey, I'm Aaron Levine. He's like, Levine, that's a Jewish name. I was like, yeah, I'm Jewish. And he looked me in the eyes with this, changing the channels kind of look on his face, and was just like, yeah, the Jews got a lot of things right, but they got the main thing wrong. And I'm just like, hey, I'm at your church. I'm celebrating with you.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't take that approach, man.
It was so passive-aggressive, but just so harsh.
Because I say the Jews got a ton of things right, actually. I think, and I give them a lot of credit. I think Christians get a lot wrong. I think that a lot of them don't even understand their own faith. I don't think they really, honestly, when it comes down to it, I don't believe most Christians believe what they believe. They say they do. They're culturally Christian, but I think when they're pushed up against the wall, I think that faith is shallow. And I don't think they would really be willing to stand for it. And I don't think a lot of them are really even able to defend their faith. And I'm coming from a place now where I've changed my mind. I am open to changing my mind on stuff if I see scripture or something in the Bible that changes my perspective. Like I am now a firm believer in following the Torah and following Jewish law, the law of Moses. Like I'm trying to do that to the best of my ability. Like Friday night, man, I'm keeping Sabbath now. That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, dude, because it's because I came to this point where I'm like, I can't, Jesus kept the Sabbath. Jesus kept God's laws. The disciples kept the Sabbath. They kept God's laws. Why aren't Christians keeping God's laws? And why aren't we keeping the festivals that God commanded us to keep as something that's everlasting? It didn't make any sense to me. And I started reading more into it. I'm like, this does not make any sense. Why are we not following these when God very clearly tells us to?
Yeah, I would like to follow Shabbos more, because then I'm not allowed to work. I would like to just do nothing on Saturdays. It's not do nothing, but I like to be grateful for what God has bestowed upon me. But I like that where it's just yep, can't go anywhere. Nope.
I think it's a good thing, bro. I actually do. I think too that's part of what sets God's people apart from the rest of the world. You think about it. If believers actually practice the Sabbath, they are completely set apart from the rest of the world. They just are. They're doing something that is radically different than everybody else. And I think it makes a bold statement of what they actually believe. And I know like we come from a county where we have the Hasidics. And it's very noticeable that they do something very different. We may think it's some people might think it's weird, but I'm as I'm coming to this understanding of the Sabbath, I'm like, that's kind of beautiful. They take this one day very seriously, and they commit it to God, and they spend all day reading Torah and praying together and doing it. I thought that was awesome.
I can totally admire that. As a natural, it's hard to say natural-born Jewish, because my mother was Methodist, and my mother left when I was 7, but my dad was Jewish, and we always celebrated the high holy days, and we didn't always give gifts on Passover, because why show somebody how cheap you are for 8 days when you could just have one awesome day on Christmas? But the thing about the Hasidim is they are very, very stern in their beliefs, and they cast a lot of judgment. and I know this like from talking with Hasidim, they think of Gentiles and even other Jews that aren't of their faith as like subservient. You know, they actually think of other Jews as like traitors almost. Like, we got it wrong. Like, we have a perverse sense of Judaism. And these are my friends just like telling me like, you know, like things that they had learned growing up. But they think of Christians and everyone else, like just Gentiles, as like basically their workers. Like, they serve them. It's a strange faith. It's a strange demographic. And they're not bad people. It's just that's what they believe. It's like the Amish. You know, they follow this very strict code, and that's what they're taught.
Huh. And I think, man, I think too that's part of the reason they hated Jesus so much is because Jesus was trying to bring the Gentiles back into the fold. And I think that was always the intention. You read in the Bible in Exodus, it talks about this welcoming the foreigner and the sojourner, essentially Gentiles. I mean, God made a way for everybody to become believers by getting circumcised. And I don't just mean the foreskin, but circumcision of the heart. And anybody can do that.
Right. This conversation's like you just like, you shifted into that gear. Once you said circumcision, I was like, oh yeah, that happened to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, circumcision, man, in the Old Testament, and it's like almost glazed over as an afterthought, is not just the physical act, but it's something that happens within your heart. So that's what's being referred to. Man, I wish I knew the verses off the top of my head. I don't.
I wish you did too.
It's really profound. I will send them to you. But
yeah, man, I'm down to read it.
I never knew that. So like, I didn't know it was in the Old Testament about circumcising your heart. It blew my mind when I read it. I was like, what? And then Paul, when he's writing to in Romans and Galatians, he's talking about circumcising your heart too. So it's always been there. It's just missed over. So I think what Jesus is, so a lot of people think Jesus was doing away with Judaism. He wasn't. That wouldn't make any sense. He was attacking the traditions, the man-made traditions, but not God's law. He was attacking the rules they made on top of God's law.
But the Jews still believe that the Messiah is coming. They just don't believe that it was Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think Scripture points to it actually being Jesus, which is pretty interesting. So, yeah, I love talking about this stuff, man.
Yeah, no, I get into it. I do. You know, and the important thing is that I never jump down anyone's throat. I'm always down to talk about it. You know, like I've got no problem talking with people about Israel. Some people get so hyped up about the Israeli and the Palestinian conflict, but they don't know that like the name Palestine comes from the Latin Philistines, which basically means like foreign force. Basically, like those were outsiders that came in and took over, you know, Israel. That, you know, they took over Zion. But the thing that I don't understand about that conflict, that I always tell people, is like, if it's such a holy place, why are you killing people there? You know, if you believe in the Word of God, why are you like not admitting children? You know, so like I know some hardcore Zionists. Like, I've met some IDF dudes and whatnot, and like, I mean, I don't know anyone from like the Mossad or anything like that, but I've met some Israeli like nationalists, and you know, they believe their thing. You know, a lot more conservative Jews believe, like, you know, they're very pro-Israel and anti-Palestine, but it's like, hey, if this is where everybody believes is the right place, like, why aren't you sharing? You know, I mean, it's hummus. It's just hummus. We don't know who made it. It's good. You make it one way, I make it the other way. Let's eat it together.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know. It's but it is interesting that there's always conflict there. I kind of keep an eye on it too, in terms of like eschatology, like end time stuff, to kind of just see, you know, where, you know, what happens, because like there's a prophecy about Israel being surrounded by different military powers, and that's when things are going to get real.
Do you think that things are getting real, we're nearing the end?
Absolutely. I was saying before that a lot of the things happening in the world are stuff that is indicative of things happening in the end times. So the Bible talks about pestilence, famines, wars, and then death. And a pestilence is a disease. And I'd say, oh, well, the coronavirus fulfills that. And then we see famines happening right now in California, and that's a little concern. Probably more places, but I know definitely it's starting. So if that gets more severe.
When was the last time there wasn't a famine in North Korea? These things are always happening. These things are very affluent in in human culture, in human existence, or the global experience. There hasn't been a moment of peace in human history in probably, I couldn't tell you, past 500 years, just knowing what I know. And who knows what happened before, the Library of Alexandria was burned down.
Yeah.
Who knows? So much has happened in human history. We don't even know, when the first civilization was. We know from, carbon data that, the first, human culture was, Mesopotamia, around the Middle East, in that area, Afghanistan, Iran, turning into Persia, and, the Hindis, but then, the Chinese have thousands and thousands of years of being Chinese. We don't know so much about, so much in this hemisphere was destroyed by imperialism from European forces long before our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents got here. There has been so much that has happened just for humans. We don't know if there was a greater technology before us. I love the ancient aliens argument that, aliens came and helped us out and whatnot. It's what if those were just other humans that were more technologically advanced than we are?
Yeah, I actually have some thoughts on that that are pretty interesting. But and I'll share in just a second. But I would say if we see a famine on a global scale, that would be concerning for me. And then obviously wars, but I think each one brings the next one. So we'll see. We'll see. But in terms of aliens, I actually don't believe in aliens. So
you don't?
No, I don't. I actually believe that because I always try to think of how does this fit into my Christian worldview, and I think that aliens, or what we would perceive as aliens, would be either angels or fallen angels, aka demons. That's what I think aliens would be.
Yeah, but angels and demons, they might just be aliens.
Yeah, that makes the most logical sense to me. Or my other theory, and this is out there. This is, I'm not. I think that if we see UFOs or these unidentified flying objects or unidentified aerial phenomenons, UAPs, they could possibly be holograms. You never know.
What if they're force, force ghosts, like Jedis?
That's possible. But those are the two most logical things I can think of. Because
you don't think that there's other life in the universe?
I don't know. I if there is, I think it's aliens. Not aliens, angels.
Dude, yeah, but the probability that there's no life outside of, no intelligent life outside of Earth, come on, there's such a slim chance that there's not aliens. There could be thousands of types of aliens, and you're telling me that you don't think that there are? That's a tiny percentile. It's a fraction of a chance that we're alone, when there could be so much more out there.
I think if there is, it's probably more advanced human beings or that angels. That's kind of what the vein that I'm landing on right now. I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I'm not going to rule it out, but I don't
Can't
know.
rule anything out.
Yeah, I would like to see something, at this point. Like, we get, and there's stuff that's a little bit more compelling, but still, like, it's always like a video of this unidentified flying object, but nothing like standing up, like no physical being that we're seeing. We're just seeing these objects, these strange phenomenons happen, and I'm trying to be as logical as possible when I think about it. And outside of a biblical worldview, the only other logical thing I could deduce that they could be would be some sort of hologram that would explain why they're able to move the way that they move, or we have more advanced technology than we've been led to believe, which that's also possible.
Yes, but do you remember, it was maybe like a year and a half ago, that there was like Navy footage that was leaked, and like the Pentagon was like, there's aerial phenomenons, which is what they call them, instead of UFOs. But do you think that maybe we've lived in like the best age, like the best era of American history, and that possibly, this is a pretty rational thought, possibly there are foreign militaries with more advanced technologies?
Yeah,
maybe
I think
that's where that footage came from. That's something I thought, but I think it's such a slim chance that we're alone in the universe.
I don't think we're alone at all. I don't. But I don't think like they're like ET aliens, Like I wouldn't think of it in that sense. The only other thing I could think of is that they would be like angelic beings that are far more intelligent and far superior than we are, and we know that at least from the Bible. They are definitely otherworldly beings, and they're existing on a different plane of existence than us, and they operate at a different level. And they would be. I mean, you think about like the biblical accounts of people seeing angels, they're always really scared. And I think it's because they're otherworldly. There's something beyond what we understand right now, and I think it would be difficult for us to comprehend that, and we would, probably label them aliens. I think that's like how we try to understand.
Like, it's written in many different scriptures that, like, God is too beautiful to describe. Like, you couldn't imagine what God looks like. Like, it would make your head explode. Like there's the, like, that almost correlates with, like, something interdimensional. And not to sound like I'm talking about, like, just science fiction, but, like, perhaps it's too great for us to see itself. Like, it's a higher consciousness.
Yeah, I think that too, man. I have a lot of thoughts too on like God and who he ultimately is, and how he can be all-knowing and omniscient and omnipotent. And one theory that I have, obviously, I don't have like a biblical basis for this. It's just me being like
that's fine,
out there. But I think if God, being that God is real, I think the most likely scenario is that we all exist within God's mind. Because that would explain to me how he could be all-knowing and how he can be everywhere at once, and how he could be all-powerful, and how he can go wherever he wants in throughout time. I think that would explain most of that. At least to me, it makes sense. Two, I think it's kind of cool too that some of the stuff that you see in the Bible, I don't know if you've ever heard of this. They're called Christophanies.
Those are the visitors, like the visiting. It's kind of. They sound like aliens.
No, it's Jesus making cameos in the Old Testament. So there's that one story in the Bible of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, where there's someone in the fire with them. That's Jesus. There's scriptures that talk about the angel of the Lord, and people believe that's also Jesus. him being pre-existent. So I think some of that stuff is pretty interesting.
Oh, it's very interesting, man.
Yeah,
It
man.
almost, I think that it's inspired a lot of things in pop culture as well, like Yoda.
Yeah, Yoda is very popular right now.
Dude, Yoda.
Baby Yoda, at least. Yeah, he's doing really good.
I was in Walmart like 3 months ago, and I had to buy like new soap, new body wash, and toothpaste and stuff. So I'm over in that section, and I got a Baby Yoda loofah. And then I got home. The whole time I'm driving, I'm like, this is the cutest thing ever. And then I get home and I hang it up in my shower, and I'm like, I'm about to put Baby Yoda in the worst places. He's about to go into no man's land. This is so bad.
You know, I have no idea what I'm going to label this episode.
That's fine.
We talked about so much, man.
Yeah, I can keep going, but if you want to call
aliens,
it...
Demons,
aliens,
conspiracy
religion,
theories, Cuomo killing people.
Political correctness.
Yeah, just about everything, man.
Jews.
Jews.
I love that I can and people don't like that, but I can get away with just being like, Jews.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Henry Miller, actually, in The Tropic of Cancer, it's like in the first pages of that book, he says there's nobody more anti-Semitic than the Jews themselves. And I think that's like the best description of the Jewish experience, being a Jewish person. It's like, there's so much self-deprecation, but there's a lot of humor and there's a lot of life behind it. There's no...
My friend worked in security for this Jewish guy, and he would have these people trying or some of the Jewish people trying to get past him, and he'd be like, no, I was told by my boss that I can't let you guys in. And they're like, no, you gotta let us in, you gotta let us in. So he got into this altercation with one of these Jewish people, and he started cursing them out. And the guy was like, I'm gonna talk to your boss. He's like, talk to my boss. And the guy went, this guy went and complained about my buddy. But then the boss said to my buddy, I like the way that you handle these Jews. he's like he talking to him about that. Like he was like he didn't care. And my friend was like, yeah, he kind of looked down on them like they're lower class Jews. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting.
We follow like a caste system. Like we look up to the doctors and lawyers, but those schleps, we don't. Those schleps, you tell a schlep to get the book of Shaw. That's it.
Oh man, dude, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, man, it's been a good time, man.
So, do you, any final thoughts that you have?
Honestly, I'm surprised that I haven't cursed. I think I might have slipped a few out, but
I don't actually think you did curse.
I think this is like the best performance for me.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, man. I was ready to bleep stuff out, so I think...
I believe it. I'm glad that you had the finger on the trigger, dude.
Yeah, I wouldn't have cut it out. I just bleeped it out. You did it. Oh, man. Well, I'm going to have to bleep that out.
Yeah, bleep that one.
But I did enjoy this conversation, man. And,
Me too, Ryan.
I've been looking forward to it. This has probably been kind of one of the most lighthearted, intense, and weird conversations I've had in a long time. So I've definitely enjoyed it. And I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, we have our parallels on a few things, but that's one thing that we've been able to do for like a couple of decades is have discussions, and that is so important. I think more people need to do that. More people need to talk to people that they might disagree with a little bit, but keep it friendly, keep it lighthearted, have a good time. And Ryan, honestly, I love you, dude, and I wish you well. I know we're gonna end here, dude. You are the shizzle. You don't have to bleep that out.
You too, man, and I love you too, bro. And I appreciate you coming on the show, and thank you for your time. And that'll be all for today. God bless everybody, and deuces.
God bless. And here's one other thing I want to say. Live a good life, love, and be loved.
Awesome. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Good night.